Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez looked like the power couple of the century. But behind the yachts, the Venice wedding, and the flashing paparazzi lights, there was another story unfolding, a story of risk, betrayal, and control. When the headlines first broke, people could not believe that this love affair was born out of scandal. Both Bezos and Sanchez walked away from marriages under a cloud of controversy, and yet soon they were celebrated on glossy covers and luxury spreads as if the world had forgotten how it all began. But deep down, the story was never really about romance. It was about power and how far two people would go to hold on to it. Lauren Sanchez, once hailed as the future billionaire's daughter-in-law, embraced the attention. She wore her crop tops on yachts beside world leaders and Hollywood stars. She smiled through every lens, but critics whispered that this was more than love. It was a calculated move, a relationship born in the fire of scandal and reborn in the light of media praise. And yet when the cameras were gone, the reality looked very different. Jeff Bezos was already planning for the day it could all fall apart, because in his world, trust is fragile and betrayal is permanent. The tabloids showed a playful moment of Bezos on his yacht, photographed smacking Lauren's bikini bottom, but insiders called it a setup, a staged shot to distract from the tension building behind closed doors. Because behind every photo op, there was another conversation about control, about loyalty, and about risk. Jeff Bezos had built an empire on careful strategy and ruthless decisions, and he was not about to let his personal life threaten the legacy he spent decades creating. While the world celebrated a $5 million wedding in Venice with diamonds, champagne, and floating palaces, Bezos was quietly calling in lawyers. Non-disclosure agreements were drawn up one after another. Every corner of their world was sealed off with contracts and silence. Lauren thought she was stepping into security, but what she entered instead was a battlefield, because Bezos had already seen warning signs, and every warning sign for him meant preparation. Sources say Lauren pushed for media deals and demanded approval. For every photo, she leveraged the marriage as a brand move, while Bezos saw each demand as a red flag. He remembered every detail, he calculated every move, and when the wedding veil was lifted, Bezos was not thinking of a honeymoon, he was preparing for an escape. Because in his eyes, Lauren was no longer love, she was leverage. The world only saw glamour. Oprah clapping at the parties, celebrities cheering on the yachts. But behind the velvet curtains, Bezos was locking down his empire with airtight prenups and confidential clauses. One clause in particular cast a long shadow. It defined any secret contact that could harm reputation as infidelity. And when Bezos discovered that Lauren had been in communication with her brother Michael Sanchez, the same man tied to the leak of his private texts years earlier, he considered it the ultimate betrayal. That moment was the turning point. Bezos did not argue. He did not plead. He executed the plan. The lawsuit was filed quietly, $5 billion. A number that symbolized not just money, but betrayal, violation of contracts, and a threat to his legacy. Bezos was not suing for wealth, he was sending a message. You cannot play with my name. You cannot touch this empire. Lauren Sanchez tried to stop it. She begged in private, telling Jeff, "You will destroy me. You will destroy us both." But Bezos cut her off with words that were cold and final. "This is not about us anymore. This is about rules in that moment." Lauren realized the marriage was no longer about love or image, it was about survival. After the wedding, the world expected a honeymoon, but what they did not see was the silence that grew inside Bezos' estates. Sources say the change was immediate. Arguments sparked not about love, but about image. Lauren wanted her own interviews. She wanted to be seen as more than just a partner. She wanted to stand in the spotlight, but Bezos cut her off. He told her, "This is not the right time. You are starved for attention," and that sentence froze the air. Lauren accused him of trying to control her. She said he saw her as nothing more than an accessory. And that accusation lit the fuse from that point forward. It was not about romance. It was about power. Bezos did not raise his voice. He did not plead. He simply began preparing his case. Every document, every photo, every message was collected and placed into a file because he had learned the cost of divorce once before when Mackenzie Scott walked away with more than $35 billion. He promised himself it would never happen again. The public still saw the glamorous photos, but behind the cameras, Bezos' team reviewed every clause of the prenup. They tightened every lock around his fortune, Blue Origin, Amazon, and his private holdings. While Lauren thought she had secured the dream of a lifetime, Bezos was already setting up the escape hatch. Insiders say he even moved assets quietly, shifting trusts, restructuring ownership, removing names from paperwork, preparing for a possible storm. And then came the betrayal that sealed it all. Lauren's contact with her brother, Michael Sanchez, the man who once leaked Bezos' private texts, was the line Bezos could not allow to be crossed for him. It did not matter. What the conversation was about, the connection itself was unacceptable, because in his eyes, Michael was the symbol of the scandal that nearly broke him years earlier. There would be no forgiveness, no second chance. The prenup clause came alive. The betrayal was defined. The lawyers were called. The case was filed. And suddenly, this was not marriage. It was war. Lauren tried to reason. She tried to negotiate. But Bezos had already shut the door. He told his advisors, "Prepare your options." And in Bezos's world, that meant one thing: total legal war. She begged him face to face. She told him, "You are going to destroy me." But Bezos sat silent and then answered with a chilling calm, "This is not about us anymore. This is about rules." Lauren left shaken because she realized it was no longer about the yacht parties or the designer dresses. This was about her survival, her image, her very identity, and Bezos held every card. The lawsuit was not public yet. It was sealed and airtight. But insiders say the legal unit handling it was specialized. They were known for dismantling celebrities, for unraveling scandalous divorces, for protecting government-level secrets. Bezos had unleashed what some called his nuclear legal option. The number 5 billion was not random. It was designed to represent damage to reputation, violation of prenup agreements, and most of all, the cost of betrayal. And Bezos did not stop at lawyers. He built a rapid response team to manage the fallout. They were not hired to spin the story. They were hired to bury it, to control it, and if necessary to release his version before anyone else could speak. He even gathered evidence, personal voicemails, messages, and photographs that he could use as a weapon if Lauren tried to turn public opinion in her favor. For Lauren, the realization was devastating. She had walked down the aisle smiling at a $5 million Venice wedding. But within days, she was facing the possibility of ruin. Insiders say she contacted top crisis PR firms hoping to soften her image before the storm hit. But no matter what she tried, she could not match the scale of Bezos' machine. This was no ordinary breakup. This was a calculated purge. And once Bezos flipped that switch, there was no going back. The marriage of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez looked like the pinnacle of power and glamour. But behind the stage of yachts, palaces, and global headlines, there was a slow unraveling, a quiet war that was spreading through every corner of their private lives while the world saw diamonds sparkling on the canals of Venice and whispered about the guest list filled with Oprah, Kris Jenner, and Bill Gates. The reality was that Bezos was tightening his grip on everything he owned, and Lauren was beginning to realize that she was living inside a fortress. She could not control. Jeff Bezos did not become the richest man in the world by being careless. Every decision he ever made was built on calculation, on preparation, on controlling risk. And when it came to Lauren, he treated the marriage exactly the same as a business deal. Insiders say that in the months leading up to the wedding, he ordered his legal teams to review every line of the prenup 3 times over every clause, every possibility, every loophole. And then he added more protection layers of trusts offshore, holdings, NDAs with staff, and even security around their estates so tight that not even close friends could reach them without clearance. This was not love as the magazines portrayed it. This was strategy. Lauren entered that world thinking she had finally secured the ultimate position, the role of the billionaire's wife, with all the glamour and attention that came with it. She had the photographers following her, the glossy covers calling her a style icon, and the invitations to the kind of parties most people only dream about. But what she did not realize was that she had also walked into a cage built with lawyers, bankers, and silent staff who all reported back to one man, Jeff Bezos. And in that cage, every move she made would be watched. Every word would be recorded, every choice would be weighed. The early cracks began with small arguments. Lauren wanted to step into the spotlight she wanted. Interviews, covers, and brand deals she wanted to shape her own image, separate from Jeff, but Bezos disagreed. He told her the timing was wrong, that the attention would look desperate, that she was starved for fame, and that her presence had to align. With his brand not her own, and in that one sentence, you are starved for attention. A shadow fell over the relationship because it revealed the power struggle at its core. Lauren wanted independence, Jeff wanted control. From that moment, the fights escalated. They were not shouting matches, but Cold War's arguments about image, about money, about who controlled the narrative. Insiders say that Bezos was deeply disturbed when Lauren began pushing for media approvals, demanding that certain photos be released and others hidden, as if she were managing not just her own brand, but the marriage itself. Bezos saw it as a red flag. He remembered the scandal of the leaked texts years earlier, and he never forgot that Lauren's brother Michael Sanchez had played a role in that humiliation. So when he discovered that Lauren had opened the door to communication with Michael again, even if only for family reasons, he considered it unforgivable. In Bezos' mind, trust once broken never returns. That discovery triggered the hidden clause in the prenup, a clause that defined any secret communication that could damage reputation as a form of infidelity. It was a clause so strict and so chilling that it essentially gave Bezos the right to declare betrayal whenever he felt threatened, and in this case he felt not just threatened, but betrayed once again. And so without a word, he ordered the legal machinery to begin moving. The lawsuit was designed in silence, no press leaks, no warnings, no ultimatums. It was not a threat, it was execution. The figure $5 billion was carefully chosen, a mix of brand damage prenup penalties and symbolic punishment. It was a number that sent a message to Lauren and to anyone else who might try to use Bezos' name. You cannot touch this empire, you cannot cross this line and survive. Lauren's reaction was shock. She thought she could reason with Jeff. She thought she could remind him of love and partnership. She even begged him directly in his private office, saying, "You are going to destroy me. You are going to destroy us both." But Jeff remained calm, cold, and final. He told her, "This is not about us anymore. This is about rules." And that sentence cut deeper than any argument could, because it revealed that, in his eyes, the marriage was no longer personal. It was contractual, and she had broken the contract. From there, Bezos activated his full defense strategy. Assets were quietly moved. Trusts were rearranged. Names were erased from documents. Properties were transferred into new structures. Everything was designed to ensure that if the marriage collapsed, Lauren would have nothing to stand on. His legal team assembled a rapid response unit, a mix of high-profile attorneys, former prosecutors, and crisis managers whose job was not to spin the story, but to bury it, to silence it, to control it, and to release only the version that Bezos wanted the world to see. At the same time, Bezos collected his insurance. He gathered voicemails, messages, and photographs from the private archives, evidence that could be used if Lauren ever tried to go public with her side of the story. The warning was clear: if she spoke out, he would bury her with proof, and the proof would be irrefutable. Meanwhile, Lauren tried to fight back. She reached out to top crisis PR firms in Los Angeles and New York. She begged them to reshape her image, to humanize her before the storm broke. But insiders say even those firms whispered to her that fighting Bezos was impossible. They told her he had too much money, too many lawyers, and too much control over the media landscape to be beaten in a public relations war. This left Lauren trapped. The wedding that was supposed to be her crowning moment had turned into a trapdoor. The luxury yacht parties, the designer gowns, the flashing cameras had all been smokescreens hiding a cold reality. She was not living in a fairy tale. She was living in a chess match against one of the most calculating men in the world. And she was already losing. The timing made it worse because the lawsuit began moving almost immediately after the wedding. Insiders claim that just 2 days after the Venice ceremony, Bezos gave the order to begin the legal assault. The mask came off behind. The estate gates and the honeymoon dream was replaced with silence meetings with lawyers and confidential strategy sessions. Lauren tried to argue for love, but Jeff only saw risk. He had already lost once in a divorce that cost him $35 billion. He would not allow history to repeat itself. And then came the line that insiders say froze everyone in the room. Bezos told Lauren, "You married me, not my brand." And in that single statement, the truth was revealed. Bezos did not see her as a partner in his empire. He saw her as a variable, a factor in an equation, something that had value until it no longer did. And once she became a risk, she was erased. For Lauren, the nightmare had only begun because this was not a public scandal yet. It was a private purge, a cold strategic dismantling of everything she thought she had gained. And the scariest part was that Bezos was not motivated by anger or heartbreak. He was motivated by control, by legacy, by the empire he had built from a garage in Seattle to the stars. With Blue Origin, he was protecting not just his money, but his story, his reputation, his image. And in that story, Lauren Sanchez was already being written out. Insiders say Lauren cried, pleaded, and even threatened to go public. But Bezos had already anticipated every move his lawyers had already built. Airtight NDAs. His communications team already had statements prepared. His financial advisors had already shifted billions into safe structures, and his archive of private evidence was already waiting on standby. If she made a single mistake, he would unleash it and end the story on his terms. And so the public still saw the glamour, they still saw Lauren smiling at galas, still saw the yachts, still saw the gowns. But what they did not see was the silence in the rooms behind those gates, the meetings with lawyers, the frantic calls to PR firms, the whispered warnings from friends that she could not win this battle because Jeff Bezos was not fighting for love, he was fighting for his empire. This is what makes the story so chilling. This is not the usual Hollywood scandal of betrayal and heartbreak. This is a calculated purge carried out by one of the richest men alive. A purge so quiet, so strategic, and so ruthless that by the time the public ever learns the full truth, the story will already be over, the lawsuit will already be decided, the assets will already be moved, and Lauren will already be erased from the empire. The end of the story was not written in champagne toasts or luxury yachts. It was written in silence and strategy. Jeff Bezos had built his empire by planning for every possible outcome, and his marriage was no different while the world saw glossy magazine covers and photos of Venice vows. Insiders saw the cold machinery of legal teams, financial advisors, and private investigators closing in on Lauren Sanchez step by step. She had dreamed of being seen as the ultimate power partner, walking into rooms beside the richest man alive, wearing gowns that sparkled under camera flashes, smiling as celebrities whispered her name. But the truth behind the gates was darker. Jeff Bezos never saw her as forever. He saw her as leverage, as a variable in an equation, and when that variable turned into a threat, he erased it without hesitation. Lauren tried everything she called in favors. She begged friends in Hollywood to rally behind her. She contacted publicists who promised her sympathetic coverage, but each time she ran into the same wall, Bezos controlled the narrative. His team had NDAs in place. His lawyers had airtight clauses. His assets were already moved into safe structures. It was a fortress she could not touch, and every door she knocked on seemed to close before she could even speak. Insiders say she wept in private, telling him he would destroy them both. But Jeff remained unmoved. He told her, "This is not about us anymore. This is about rules." And in that cold sentence, her fate was sealed. She was no longer his wife in his eyes. She was a liability, and liabilities had to be removed. The lawsuit moved forward quietly, $5 billion hanging over her head like a shadow. Not just a number, but a symbol of betrayal. A punishment for crossing lines that Bezos had made clear could never be crossed. And in that sealed courtroom battle, Lauren realized she was not facing a husband. She was facing the most powerful man in the room, backed by armies of lawyers, bankers, and strategists who would not stop until the story was written his way. To the public, the fairy tale lingered a little longer. They still saw photos of them together, still saw Lauren dressed in designer outfits, still saw Bezos smiling politely at events. But those who knew the truth said the love was already gone. The battle was already underway, and the outcome was already decided, because when Jeff Bezos flips the switch, there is no hesitation, no looking back. This is what makes the story so unsettling. It is not the scandal of an affair. It is not the gossip of Hollywood romances. It is the cold reminder that in the world of power and money, love can be rewritten into a contract, and a contract can be torn apart in silence. Lauren. Sanchez walked into the marriage believing she had secured her future, but what she underestimated was that Jeff Bezos does not lose twice. His first divorce cost him $35 billion. He made sure the second would cost him nothing. And so, the glamorous wedding, the yachts, the gowns, the guest list of billionaires and stars, all fade into memory, replaced by the image of a man preparing for war. Not with anger, not with heartbreak, but with calculation. Lauren thought she had married into security. But in truth, she had stepped into a chess game where every piece, every move, and every ending was controlled by one player. The final act was not a kiss. It was a courtroom. The vows were replaced with clauses, the love letters replaced with legal filings, and the fairy tale ended not with happily ever after, but with a cold signature on documents that sealed her fate. Jeff Bezos had once again proven that his empire, his image, and his legacy come before everything else, and anyone who threatens that legacy, no matter who they are, will be written out of the story. And so the world that once celebrated the billionaire romance will eventually look back and see the truth that it was never love, it was always leverage. And once leverage turns into liability, the outcome is inevitable. Jeff Bezos does not forgive, he does not forget, he calculates, and then he executes. And in the end, once he writes you out of his story, there is no second chapter. At the end of the day, Hollywood isn't just about glamour and red carpets. It's about power, secrets, and the scandals that often stay hidden until the truth forces its way into the spotlight. Whether it's courtroom drama, relationship, chaos, or behind-the-scenes deals, one thing is certain: the story never ends here. And as always, we'll be watching, digging, and uncovering the pieces others try to keep buried.